So let's talk about hydrogen. We hear about it all the time, right? And usually it's pitched as this simple fight. You've got the good, green hydrogen versus the not-so-good fossil fuel, blue hydrogen. But you know what? The real story is so much more complex, and frankly, way more interesting than just a battle of colors.
Okay, to really get why hydrogen is such a huge deal, you need to understand this number, 30%. That's how much of our global CO2 emissions come from what we call hard-to-abate sectors. We're talking about massive, essential industries. Think steel manufacturing, cement production, global shipping. These are the absolute cornerstones of our modern world, and you can't just clean them up by plugging them into a wall.
For challenges this big, you need more than just electrons from a power line. You need molecules. And that, right there, is where hydrogen makes its grand entrance. I mean, it's the most abundant element in the entire universe. Its potential as a clean, powerful, and incredibly versatile energy carrier makes it one of our best shots at decarbonizing these industrial giants.
Now, to try and make sense of all this, the industry came up with what at first seemed like a really smart idea, a color coding system. The plan was simple, right? Just assign a color to each way of making hydrogen to show how clean or, how dirty it is. So, first up, you've got gray hydrogen. This is the incumbent, the old guard. It's how we make over 95% of our hydrogen today. It comes from natural gas, and the process is cheap and well understood. But, and it's a huge but, it also pumps enormous amounts of carbon dioxide straight into the atmosphere.
Then, you've got blue hydrogen. Think of this as gray hydrogen, but with a cleanup crew. It's the same fossil fuel process, but you add a really critical step, carbon capture technology. The idea is to grab a bunch of those CO2 emissions before they can escape, and then store them, usually deep underground. It's an attempt at a compromise. And that brings us to green hydrogen. This is the dream, the clean energy ideal. You make it by splitting water, H2O, into hydrogen and oxygen. The process is called electrolysis, and it's powered completely by renewables like wind and solar. The only thing that comes out is water. But here's the reality check. Right now, it makes up less than 1% of all the hydrogen we produce.
But wait, the story doesn't stop there. The hydrogen rainbow has absolutely exploded. Now we have turquoise, pink, purple, red, brown, even black hydrogen. Each one represents a different way of making it, using everything from nuclear power to straight-up coal. What started as a simple guide has just become this confusing, unwieldy mess. We're literally running out of colors. And this is the real complication. That color system, which was supposed to be helpful, is now becoming a major distraction. It's actually holding back progress because it's oversimplifying a very, very complex reality. You don't have to take my word for it. As Professor Paul Webley from Monash University puts it, we really need to stop focusing on the colors. The debate isn't about picking your favorite color from the rainbow, it's about getting the lowest possible carbon emissions, no matter what technology gets us there.
And here's the absolute key takeaway. What really matters isn't the method, it's the measurement. The true yardstick for clean hydrogen is its carbon intensity, the total amount of greenhouse gases released for every single kilogram of hydrogen that's produced.
Okay, now look at this chart, because this is where it gets really interesting. Gray hydrogen is way, way up there, 9 to 11 kilos of CO2 for every kilo of hydrogen. Blue has a pretty wide range, anywhere from 1.5 to 5. But look at green hydrogen. Its range, 2 to 3 kilos, can actually overlap with a really well-run blue hydrogen project. How is that possible? Well, if a green project has to pull power from a grid that's burning coal or gas when the sun isn't shining, its carbon intensity just shoots right up. So the only way to get that true number is with a super comprehensive accounting process called a life cycle analysis, or an LCA. And an LCA doesn't just look at what's coming out of the factory smokestack, it accounts for everything. We're talking about the emissions from manufacturing the solar panels, methane leaks from a natural gas pipeline, even the fuel used to transport the final hydrogen to its destination.
This whole situation brings us face to face with one of the biggest engineering challenges for green hydrogen: reality. Wind and solar are fantastic, but they're intermittent. The sun sets, the wind dies down. So how on earth do you power a multi-million-dollar hydrogen plant 24/7?
Well, the engineering solution is pretty clever. It's a hybrid system. So instead of just relying on one power source, these systems combine multiple renewables. You might pair solar panels that peak during the day with wind turbines that are often strongest at night, and then use batteries to fill in any gaps. The whole point is to create a steady, reliable stream of clean electricity to keep that electrolyzer humming. And the benefits here are just crystal clear. First, you solve that big intermittency problem, giving you a much more consistent flow of power. Second, because the power is consistent, you can keep your very expensive electrolyzer running way more often, which increases its use. And that leads directly to the third point. The more you use your equipment, the lower your cost is for every single kilogram of hydrogen you produce. It all connects.
But, okay, let's just imagine for a second that we've totally nailed production. We've built the perfect low-carbon hybrid system. We still run smack into another massive hurdle. How do we actually store and transport this incredibly light and notoriously tricky molecule on a global scale?
Yeah, there's no single perfect answer here. It's all a series of really complex trade-offs. This table, which is based on an analysis for a project in Oman, lays it out really well. You can compress it as a gas, but you don't get much energy in a given space. You can liquefy it to make it denser, but that is incredibly expensive and needs all new infrastructure. Or you can convert it into something like ammonia, which is dense and can use existing infrastructure, but it adds a whole other layer of complexity.
And in that specific case, for that project in Oman, the numbers showed that compressed gas was the best bet, with ammonia as a close second. This just goes to show that the right answer for storing and moving hydrogen isn't universal. It completely depends on the location, the scale, and what you're trying to achieve with the project.
So where does all of this leave us? Well, it points to a very clear path forward. It's a path that moves beyond these simplistic color labels and instead embraces a much more rigorous, scientific, and transparent way of building a real hydrogen economy.
So you can really think of it as two different mindsets. The old way was judging hydrogen by its color. It was simple, sure, but often really misleading, and it actually risked killing innovation by trying to pick winners ahead of time. The new way judges hydrogen by its carbon intensity, by a specific number. Yeah, it's more complex, but it's accurate, and it welcomes any technology that can prove it delivers genuinely low-carbon hydrogen.
Ultimately, the goal has to be creating a rigorous, universally agreed-upon standard, a system where every single kilogram of hydrogen produced, anywhere in the world, comes with a certified number attached, a number that transparently declares its true carbon footprint. That's how you build a real, effective, and honest global market for clean energy.
So I'll leave you with this thought. In this whole energy transition, just like when you're at the grocery store, it's really easy to get swayed by a colorful label. But if we actually want to know what we're getting, we have to look past the pretty packaging and read the data. When it comes to the future of our planet, what really matters is what's inside.